Hello everyone and welcome back to the 3T Path channel. Welcome back to our Gita Mahatmya series. So today we have a beautiful story. These stories of the Gita Mahatmya are from the Padma Purana, and they are Shiva speaking to Parvati about the glories and the power of the Bhagavad Gita chapter by chapter. And today we're doing it on the chapter 12. We're seeing the very powerful effects of meditating and chanting chapter 12 of Bhagavad Gita. And this is a great story. So this is how it starts. Sri Shiva said, I will recite the wonderful glories of the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita before you, dear Parvati. In the south, there's an important holy place by the name of Kolbhapur, where the temple of Shri's divine consort Mahalakshmi is situated. Mahalakshmi is continuously worshipped by all of the demigods. That place is the fulfiller of all desires. Rudragaya is also situated there. One day, a young prince arrived there. His body was the color of gold. His eyes were very beautiful. His shoulders were strong and his chest was broad. His arms were long and strong. When he arrived in Kolhapur, he first went to the lake known as Manikantirt, where he took bath and offered worship to his ancestors. And then he went to the temple of Mahalakshmi, where he offered his obeisances and then started to pray. Now this is a wonderful prayer. So if you ever want to pray to Lakshmi Devi, this is a great prayer to use. So here it goes. O Devi, whose heart is full of mercy, who is worshipped throughout the three worlds and is the giver of all fortune and the mother of creation. All glories to you, O shelter of all living entities, O fulfiller of all desires. You are the wonderful energy of Sri Achyuta, who is maintaining the three worlds. You are the supreme goddess, O protector of the devotees. All glories to you. O Devi, it is you who fulfills the desires of the devotees, and it is you who engages them in the service of Sri Achyuta. You are the eternal and deliverer of all fallen souls. All glories unto you. O Devi, for the welfare and protection of the three worlds, you take on many forms, such as Ambika, Brahmi, Vaishnavi, Maheshwari, Varahi Mahalakshmi, Narasimhi, Indri, Kumari, Chandrika, Lakshmi, Savitri, Chandrakala, Rohini, and Parameshwari. All glories unto you, whose glories are unlimited. Kindly be merciful upon me. Very nice prayer. The most beautiful prayer to Lakshmi Devi I have ever seen. When Mahalakshmi heard those prayers, she became very pleased and said to the prince, O prince, I am very happy with you. Please request any benediction according to your heart's desire from me. That prince said, O mother of the three worlds, my father, King Brahadrati, was performing the famous sacrifice known as the Ashvamedha. But before having completed that yajna, he died due to disease. And before I was able to complete the Ashvamedha yajna, someone stole the horse that had traveled all over the world and had been purified for sacrifice in that Ashvamedha. So an Ashvamedha sacrifice, Ashvamedha yajna, you see them in the scriptures all the time. Even the Pandavas did one at the request of Krishna himself. And this was a special ceremony to consecrate someone, a king, as the emperor of the world. So the idea was there would be this special horse which would go everywhere. And if any kingdom, if anyone had any problems with it, if anybody didn't accept the horse and didn't pay a tax, a gift to the king, to the owner of the horse, to the king who was realizing the Ashvamedha Yajna, then there would be war. So the king, it would be a way of saying, look, you all accept me as emperor, and if you don't accept me, then we have to go to, we'll fight it out. So either you accept and you give gifts, or you prepare for war. So it was like a kind of a challenge, so this horse would travel all over the place. So it had to travel far and wide, because it had to travel to all the different kingdoms. And then at the end they would kill the horse. It was, they had these animal sacrifices back then. They say that the horse's soul would be uplifted and be greatly benefited because it was a special mystical event. But anyway, that part isn't very nice. But anyway, so Ashvamedha Yajnas would happen all the time. You see them always in the scriptures. And it was a great, powerful thing. It was like a big, big deal. So to do Ashvamedha Yajna, you had to be a very powerful king, very powerful, and the result was, all this huge karma. So the demigods, especially Indra, they don't like these Ashvamedha Yajnas because it starts giving so much pious credit, it gives so much good karma to the person who's realizing that it starts to become a threat to his position, because Lord Indra's position is that of the guy with the best karma. It's like if there was a karma championship, Indra is like, top karma. So, he gets to be king of the demigods. So anybody who starts going up the rankings too fast, he wants to do something to stop their uprising. So then he's saying, look, I was doing this, my father died, so I'm continuing it, but then the horse was taken. I sent people in all directions in search of that horse, but they were unable to find it. Then I took permission from the priest to come and pray for your help. And if you are pleased with me, then kindly let me know, how can I get back that horse and complete the fire yajna, the fire sacrifice, and thus fulfill my father's desire? Mahalakshmi said, O noble prince, by the gate of my temple is a highly elevated Brahmana, and he lives there, and he is known by the name of Siddha Samadhi. He will be able to fulfill your desire. So she said, okay, but just talk with my devotee. I have a devotee right at the gate of the temple there. He lives there. Siddha Samadhi. When the prince heard these words from Mahalakshmi, he went to that place where Siddha Samadhi lived and offered obeisances to him. After having offered obeisances, he stood before Siddha Samadhi silently with folded hands. Siddha Samadhi then said, you have been sent here by Mother Mahalakshmi, so I will fulfill your desire. So he didn't even say anything. He just went there, offered obeisances, and waited silently for the Brahmana to see if he wanted. He didn't want to be pushy. He didn't want to say, hey, Mahalakshmi sent me here. He just offered his obeisances and waited. But the Brahmana could perceive that it was Mahalakshmi who had sent him. Then and he knew exactly what he wanted already, so he picked all that up without the prince having to say anything. Then, chanting some mantras, Siddha Samadhi brought all of the demigods before him. The prince at that time saw all of the demigods standing before Siddha Samadhi, awaiting his instructions. And imagine the scene. It's like, what? The demigods showing up, which is already amazing. A human would go his whole life without seeing that, a single one. And then he sees all these demigods, a whole host of them standing before this Brahmana, Siddha Samadhi, awaiting his instructions. Imagine this. Then Siddha Samadhi said to those demigods, "O Devas, the prince's horse, which he had kept ready for his yajna, was stolen at night by Sri Indra. Kindly bring that horse back now." So Siddha Samadhi knew that Indra had stolen the horse. Because that's what he does. He steals, so that he spoils the whole yajna. So he says, look, Indra stole the horse, kindly bring the horse back. Immediately those demigods brought that horse before him, after which Siddha Samadhi dismissed them. When the prince saw all these wonderful happenings, he fell at the feet of Siddha Samadhi and inquired from him, "How have you attained such power, which I have not seen or heard of anyone else possessing? O great sage, kindly hear my request." Like, what is going on here? Like, how can you command demigods and then they do stuff for you, you just dismiss them? Like, what is going on here? So then he says, "My father, King Brihadrata, while beginning the Ashvamedha sacrifice, died unexpectedly. And thus I kept his body in pure boiled oil. Kindly, if you desire, please bring him back to life." So then he said, "Lord, he's so powerful, I'm going to ask him to bring my father back, to resurrect my father." So of course in the Vedas, of course in the Christianity, resurrection is a very important concept. But in the Vedas, it was always there. And it happens, there's many stories with different people being resurrected by different munis and sages, yogis, so people get resurrected. There's lots of resurrection stories in the Vedas. Now, I think a lot of Christians don't know that, but there's actually a lot of these stories in the Vedas. So here he's asking for Siddha Samadhi to bring his father back, and he preserved his father's body in oil, because his father died a while back, so he preserved the body in boiled oil. Hearing this, Siddha Samadhi gave a little chuckle. It's like, for him, it's kind of like, what? So easy, no problem at all. And said, "Let us go to that place where you have kept your father's body." When they reached that place, Siddha Samadhi took some water in his hand, and while chanting some mantras, he sprinkled the water onto the head of the dead body of King Brihadrata. As soon as the water touched his head, the king sat up and inquired from Siddha Samadhi, "O great devotee, who are you?" The prince immediately informed his father of all the events which had taken place. When the king heard that narration, he again and again offered his obeisances to Siddha Samadhi and inquired from him what austerities he had performed to attain such divine powers. Hearing the king's inquiry, Siddha Samadhi replied, "My dear King Brihadrata, daily I recite the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita." Hearing those words of that great devotee, the king learned from Siddha Samadhi the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. In the due course of time, both the king and his son attained the lotus feet of Sri Krishna. Many other persons have achieved the topmost goal, devotion to Sri Krishna's lotus feet, by reciting the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita daily. So that's the story. That's how it ends. I'm just a little emotional here, sorry. This is a great story. And the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita is the most beautiful chapter of Bhagavad Gita. That's why it's so powerful. And it's only 20 verses long. So I highly recommend you study Bhagavad Gita, of course the entire Bhagavad Gita, because they couldn't have access to Bhagavad Gita. And they would get one chapter at a time from a sage after, a whole lifetime. This is a very powerful prince and a very powerful king. And, they didn't have the Bhagavad Gita. And so finally they run in to see the Samadhi. Oh, and they get one chapter, 20 verses. There are 700 verses in the Bhagavad Gita. They got these 20 verses. So you're so fortunate. We have the whole Bhagavad Gita. We're the most fortunate humans ever to have lived. We have the whole Bhagavad Gita right in the palm of our hands. If you're watching this, you have the whole Bhagavad Gita. You have it chanted, you have it sung, you have it written down in any language you can think of. It's amazing. So please study the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. And, we don't need these powers. What we really need is what they got, which is the topmost goal: devotion to Sri Krishna's lotus feet, resurrection. All of us get resurrected. We don't need the same body. I'm certainly not attached to having the same body. Die and get another body would be better. Why do we want to know? And this one's too old anyway. So just, we're all going to get a body. So you don't have to worry about resurrection. And we certainly don't want to control demigods. Let nature control nature. Let's just worship and take care of nature. We can serve nature. We don't need to control the demigods who control nature. What we really need is devotion to Lord Krishna. And then we can get that certainly from the 12th chapter, because the 12th chapter is about Bhakti Yoga. It's the chapter dedicated to Bhakti Yoga. So Krishna teaches Arjuna all the things which will please him. The whole chapter, this beautiful chapter, is Krishna's teaching us what to do, what kind of behavior, what kind of mentality, what kind of habits and mindset to develop to please him. So it's a very important chapter indeed. Well, I hope you enjoy that. Have your rest of your day with lots of peace and lots of love.